Welcome. Hold on. Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fire. This is the Pyro Podcast. This is show 218, and we're fired up. We're doing another live blab here, and we've got, so that means that we are each in our own homes, which is kind of dope. I am D-Rex. On the screen with me, usually to the left, but now on the screen in the upper right, is Houdini. Not across the way, but down in the bottom left is Pyro, Anthony, Stagg Party. And then we got Pyromaniac Mo on as well. And today we are going to be talking about all the awesomeness that's happening in free agency, because it was a serious day with transactions. In the last couple days, it's just been so much fun, people bouncing all over the place. So we'll talk a little bit about our collective tiers, which is one of the original topics we were going to talk about on the show. But since we delivered those about 2 or 3 nights ago, and with all this action that's happening, we decided that we kind of needed to update our tiers. So what's up, guys? We fired up to talk some fantasy football and get the goo rolling for our Pyros?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bring it on, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to try and do some sound bites during the show today, guys. We hope they sound good. But let's get into the action. You know, we got brother. Hold on. This is going to be shut up. Technology is fun. We just tried to get Dogmatica into the mix for the last 20 minutes. We couldn't do it because Blab only allows us to have 4 people on the show and on the video screen at once. So Dogmatica is going to not be a part of this. Maybe we'll get him on the show a little bit later, but user error. So what do you guys think? Let's someone start with an interesting, I think the Texans, the best, I don't know whether you or OC posted that, retweeted the Texans Twitter post today, but it was a bunch of the minions clapping and being hyper and going crazy because they had themselves a big day today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they added a quarterback for $18 million a year with 7 starts under his belt. So you could debate whether that was a good signing, but when you've been in the land of Brian Hoyer and bad Matt Schaub the last couple of years, you got to make a move here and there. So that might be worth the risk. We'll see how that pays off. That's going to be a major question mark. But then they do get a proven running back, which is the exciting factor. Lamar Miller coming over, to where in 26 of 32 games, they've been giving a running back at least 15 carries in a game. So, and that's just one running back. So he should, get a more even workload. So I am loving Lamar Miller already. I was already having him in the 7-8 range on my tiers, and he'll probably end up like right around running back 5, right behind like David Johnson.
Oh yeah,
I agree. I think this is a fantastic thing for Lamar Miller. Especially too because even if he would have stayed in Miami in Adam Gase's offense there, look at what it did or didn't do for Matt Forte last year. It wasn't as good as Forte had seen in some previous seasons. So I think definitely with Osweiler too, you're not having a quarterback who's really going to open it up. You're going to be expecting to play safe. So you're going to lean on the run. So finally Lamar Miller, where those games where he was going off in the first half with about 90 yards on 12 carries and then would finish the game with 15 carries for 96 yards, he's going to get 25 carries in those games. So it makes a huge impact. And I think that the other interesting aspect is with Brock Osweiler deciding to go to Houston and stick it to Denver. So, here's Denver, who just won the Super Bowl, and now they don't have Peyton Manning, who retired, and the guy who they had been grooming for all these years felt spurned by the fact that they let Peyton take everything back over and said, screw you, I'm going to Houston.
Yeah, well, that was the most interesting part of the story, to where it was like, John Elway, they thought they might have had a deal for the $12 million range, and now it gets up to 18 in Houston, and the guaranteed money's more. But yeah, it's probably the fact that he felt spurned, like, they bypassed him as the starter for the playoffs. So, why do you want to go back? I guess he wasn't involved in that, situation too much, and he hasn't been returning coaches' calls, former teammates' calls since the start of the offseason, and he just sort of removed himself from the situation. So, I can't blame the guy for leaving. You want to blaze your own trail, and you can't do that on a team where you've had John Elway, you've had Peyton Manning the last couple of years. Who the Houston Texans had, like the best quarterback in their history is Matt Schaub, right? So you got a lot better chance to do well there.
Yeah, with Osweiler going there, I think it certainly helps DeAndre to actually have, even though we've got a small sample size with Osweiler, I think it helps DeAndre not only having a legitimate quarterback there, but also having a legitimate running back for defenses to have to pay attention to. And I was just talking to Christopher Harris today. I did a fantasy football talk for the Pyro Light, which will release this weekend. And we both were kind of saying the same thing, that we've always kind of liked Lamar Miller over the years. There's always kind of been something, for a guy with such speed. We kept waiting for him to be more of a home run hitter. But one of the consensuses I think we came to is that he's never really had a chance. He's only had one season where they've afforded him over 200 carries. Owners know from last year how frustrating it was. I mean, I think there were 6 games where he did not get double-digit carries. And I think Houston, we're going to see what Lamar really has. And I got to say, even though he hasn't been afforded many carries, he's done phenomenally well. I think 5th in Pyro PPR, 6th in standard last year, even with the low amount of carries he got. I think Houston in the offense and Stags, this is something you and I were just kind of tweeting back and forth. You kind of liked Houston for Lamar with that Bill O'Brien. It's not quite the one cut and go Patriots, but it's very, very similar. And I think you were kind of saying that you liked Lamar in that offense.
Yeah, I like that offense more than I like the Dallas offense for Lamar Miller potentially, just with the outside weapons and then how they will feature him. Because they will feature him. Even if he went to Dallas, they would have given Run DMC some carries here and there. But this shall be a feature role. I think he gets a ton of work. They're just going to be involved. Their offensive line is highly athletic, even though they're replacing, a guard, Dwayne Brown, out for, Jeff Allen. So their offensive line is good at run blocking. They run a little bit of zone blocking schemes. They run some power. They run a little bit of everything. And then DeAndre on the outside, the verticality that he can bring, what sort of vertical stretch did he ever have in Miami? Rashard Matthews,
right.
Maybe, Devontae Parker towards the end there. But most of their offense was within the 5 yards because nobody was scared of Ryan Tannehill, throwing that ball deep. I think he's going to have a ton of running lane. I think just the offense as a whole is going to be very effective. And when they give him 18 touches, because he's also very good at catching the ball out of the backfield, and they were able to feature Arian Foster last year on his bum knee doing that. So he's going to be able to do everything. His main competition will be like Alfred Blue, who has one of the lowest yards per carry, averages in the history of the NFL. So that's not a guy you're really worried about. Talking about bringing back other guys that are like gadget players, Jonathan Grimes, complimentary backs. So it's going to be Lamar Miller's show. I like this offense because it's one of those things that hits all the things you're looking for. It's got a, number one receiver. It's got a number one running back. They should have a couple complementary pieces at receiver, depending on the development of Ryan Griffin next season. They should have a solid tight end game. And we saw that during the season that Brock likes to throw to the tight end. So I think it's just an interesting developing offense. Now the question is, can the chemistry come together? Because we saw with last year's Eagles that it didn't happen. And it eventually happened really late.
Well, the good news is that they are in the best division to not have to worry about that. You're talking about getting, the Colts and the Jaguars and who's the other team that I'm forgetting that's in their division?
Titans.
Tennessee Titans. So you got a real strong division there. He's got a great defense. The one point that I want to make is though also about Brock Osweiler. I want to bring it back to Osweiler. He got the big money, $18 million, and I want to believe it was Denver was offering him $16 million to stay. But you realize this was all on 7 games started, and it is very eerily similar to the 7 games started in the huge contract that Scott Mitchell got when he was for the Dolphins and then signed with the Detroit Lions. So are we looking at the next Scott Mitchell here?
I think they're hoping that the Manning tutelage and having a good quarterback coach and Gase before he split for Chicago and then Miami, and having a good coaching staff, having a Hall of Famer in Elway, hopefully that kind of mentorship will lead into. But it's risky as hell. I mean, I got a bunch of texts from people just talking football today, not over Twitter or whatever, and it was all like, $78 million for Brock Osweiler? Whoa, what do you think about this, D? And it's a lot of money. I mean, that is a huge friggin' contract. And, I was reading that basically Elway knew last week to kind of go on with what Stagg Party was saying a little earlier. It's like they kind of knew Brock wasn't coming back, so they're not surprised by this whatsoever. And the truth is, I like it for Houston. But it comes with a lot of risk. He could certainly be the next Scott Mitchell. There's a lot of players he could be Matt Castle had his opportunity for the Patriots. And then where did he go? Was that the Chiefs? Yep. Look what happened there. And then, so you just don't know what you're going to get, but it's a super, the situation as any Houston fan is a lot better now. Look at the flip side. What if they had gotten RG3? What if they had gotten, Kaepernick? What if they had gone and grabbed a rookie in the draft? Are you any? Yeah, Fitzpatrick, who you just had on your team 2 years ago. But Fitzpatrick's got to be like, what the hell? I could have had that money and still been on that team.
Fitzpatrick's going to be fine.
Yeah, he's probably going to.
But what I was going to say about Brock Osweiler is one of the reasons Bill O'Brien went out and recruited him is he has heard from Manning and from other people that Brock Osweiler has learned to prepare the right way. And that is what Bill O'Brien likes in a quarterback. He likes a heady guy who's going to come in. He's going to be the first guy there, the last guy to leave. He's going to be the guy who can run a meeting room. He's going to be the guy who, just takes it all in during the week and prepares, like Manning has. He learned directly from Manning, how to prepare for a football game. And that's one thing Bill O'Brien was extremely impressed with. So we'll see how that sort of plays out. I think that's going to be a big thing, in their offense and sort of tutelage to where he's going to be prepared. He's not going to, throw too many interceptions like Hoyer did in that, disastrous conference champion or playoff game. Basically, he's going to be a game manager. And if that defense is as good as it was at the end of last season, and we've seen that, in their history, and then, a run game with Lamar Miller, getting the ball to DeAndre on short routes, deep routes, and just DeAndre's ability, when you throw it to Marius Thomas 13 times, he might catch 3. When you throw it to DeAndre Hopkins, 13 times, he's going to catch 8 or 9.
Very true.
Yep. So let's let me have one last comment for everybody if they got it on Houston, and we can move on to something else. But I'll say the other benefit for Osweiler is that isn't Bill O'Brien a guy that's known as a guy that helps quarterbacks always? Like he always gets the best out of quarterbacks. So if he sees all these traits in a guy who at least now Osweiler is not coming in green. He has been in the league for a bunch of years and got his chance last year. Now he's hungry and he's more comfortable and calm. And so I think O'Brien will do great things with him down there.
I recently was doing some digging and I found a John Paulson article. Now this was a few years ago, but he did a really good study and then he actually updated it on a recent 4for4 podcast. He did a study of free agents that went to a new team, and then he looked at fantasy, the effects on fantasy production. And it was pretty impressive. I actually just retweeted it out at Pyromaniac.com on Twitter. And most free agents that go to a new place decrease in fantasy. The most successful group was quarterbacks. He actually I wrote down some numbers. He looked at, for guys, fantasy players that scored over 6 points a game. He looked at 51 different players from the years 2006 to 2012, and 40 guys decreased. Once they landed on a new team, only 11 increased. But again, quarterbacks, that was the best performance, I guess. That was the best that was the best free agent position to go to a new team and have fantasy production was quarterbacks. Wide receiver not so much. Wide receivers were pretty bad across the board. 2014 was the anomaly. That was the outlier. But, man, the numbers were really kind of startling. And I know everybody gets all excited about free agents and all the possibilities. One thing that I think he found to be interesting for fantasy is that usually guys below 30 were the ones that did well. And also if they improved, like wide receivers, if they improved a quarterback, but also if a guy was improving a position. So like wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 2, usually those were the guys that did better, going from a wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 1. So younger guys and guys that are improving the position seemed to be that one little key for free agents that did better. But I think it's just, I don't know, human condition. We get excited about this new shakeup and all the new possibilities, and it's very often the case that they don't perform as we hope.
Guys coming off rookie deals tend to perform, similarly well. So you don't have to worry about a guy like Lamar Miller, who's 24 years old. There are draft eligible running backs who are just as old as Lamar Miller coming out this year. It is insane how young Lamar Miller is comparison to Doug Martin, who's 27. You got a 24-year-old Lamar Miller. I have about zero worries with him. Brock Osweiler we like, but then later on down the line, signing those old vets coming off their second contract, maybe their third. We saw it last year with sort of Andre Johnson. We saw it with Frank Gore. We saw it with all these really sort of old, used to be transcendent talents, that those aren't the guys who are going to pay off. So those are the guys I'm going to completely avoid. But when they're fresh guys who are, between 26 and 27 years old, I'm not going to be scared off. I do understand the wide receivers because it takes a while to get, acclimated with the offense, acclimated with the calls, acclimated with the quarterback, just acclimated with everything. I think that's a bigger thing when it comes to wide receivers. So we'll see how that works out.
Okay, well, I think that covers a lot. The only thing I'm worried about when we talk, let me go on, and then you got one more thing to bring on to the table on this team. But one thing I'm a little scared about with Miller is just the fact that, and we've complained about this with other guys, it's a big Houdini thing, a guy like Andre Ellington or a guy like some of these players that don't really have the size. Are they ready to all of a sudden become a 320 carry kind of guy? I love Lamar Miller's play. I love his upside. I think he's going to have a great season if you can play all 16 games. But the one thing you got to be a little bit worried about, and Houston's very used to this, is Miller going to be able to hold up and play the first 4 games of the season, toting the rock 25, 30 times, and then come back for week 5 through 10 and not be a little bit banged up? Because it's just – he's got that body and the running style that doesn't necessarily match his body type. I mean,
he's similarly sized to Arian Foster, which is good and scary at the same time.
I know. Sometimes
hopefully he doesn't hurt like Arian.
It's whatever. But go ahead, Deanie.
So I just wanted to make a quick point to what Mo had brought up about the free agents and how they perform. The person that's been playing Dynasty for over almost 15 years, this is one of the things that it's usually the kiss of death if you have a wide receiver on your team that gets moved in free agency. It's very rarely do they get moved into a great situation. It happens. It happened with Emmanuel Sanders. But it doesn't always happen. For the most part, a lot of times you get the Jeremy Maclin moves where they go from Philadelphia to Kansas City, and you know that you're just going to get a regression in the production. With running backs, I'm not as concerned. The time it takes to catch on is usually it's going to take about 4 weeks in order to get in cohesion with the offensive line. As long as you're running behind a good offensive line and you have a good situation, things will be all right. So. It's just one of those things I think definitely from a dynasty standpoint, I don't like to be, if you're out there and you're looking to make a trade, and as Mo said, you get excited. And you're saying, oh, wow, I want to get this guy now. He's on this team. I would not be running out there to make a trade and giving up a lot for a free agent wide receiver or other big-name player that signs on the move to expect big things in the next fantasy season.
So can we, on the flip side of these deals, talk about what it means for Ajay, and then what does it mean for Dog tweeted today that the dynasty players, the biggest nightmare ever is if the next quarterback for the Denver Broncos is a Colin Kaepernick. Imagine the guy you mentioned before, Emmanuel Sanders, when he Benedict Arnold the Chiefs. I wonder right now if he's like, he's like, they won a Super Bowl. They went to 2 with him. But right now he's a little bummed. And if Demaryius Thomas, who already was a little shaky down the stretch last year, has got Kaepernick thrown to him, what's the flip side? What's the vacancy that comes on from these other 2 teams with those 2 players moving? Are you scared for them?
I think Miami is still going to add somebody. This is the other thing that I think Denver is going to become a wasteland here potentially, because you have C.J. Anderson, who is a restricted free agent. All that does, though, is gives the Broncos the right to match any offer that's given to him. But there's no draft pick compensation if he doesn't sign if he goes the other direction. So. And I know that I heard that they were in on a couple of the other running backs, Miami. So, look, I'll tell you what, the cupboard could keep getting torn away from the Super Bowl champs, and I don't think anyone here really feels all that bad for him. So, but I think Ajayi is going to have some competition one way or the other, whether it comes from free agency, which is, I think, ideally where they would like it to come from, but otherwise it'll definitely come from some form in the draft.
I think they're more likely to spend a mid-round pick on a running back, sort of how they did Ajayi last year. They came out today and they said they think Ajayi is a 3-down back. They think he could do it all. So that's very important for them. They're going to give him a workload. We'll see how long he lasts through it. We know he's got sort of a degenerative knee issue. So I think he's going to be all right, but he's going to skyrocket the boards.
Are you sure? Maybe I think I was looking at my phone while I was walking Daisy, and some hot girl walked by and caught my attention or something. Are you sure it said 3-down back? And I think it said 3rd-down back.
No, 3-down back.
And the other thing is this. At this point in time, when you lost Lamar Miller and you weren't able to get the guy who you were maybe trying to go after, which was maybe like a Doug Martin or something like that, then you know what? You'd say that this guy's our 3-down back because he's the only guy left in the house.
They don't have any money.
His knee cartilage is a 0-down back.
Yeah, like Houdini said, what else are they going to say? That would have made it would have meant a lot more had they said it before they lost Miller. But
we knew they were
but they didn't say it before. They said it now. And with the knee cartilage there, certainly dynasty, that would concern me. I like Ajayi with Gase, but yeah, they will probably look to fill. And no, you were talking about Lamar Miller, and is he going to be able to tote the rock, X amount of times? As I said, he's only had 1 season with over 200 carries in his career. But look, last year, we had 1 guy. Peterson was the only one that had over 300 carries. There was only 5 guys that had over 250. That's just not a thing anymore. So I think Miller can certainly hold up. I don't think they're going to give him a stupendous amount of carries that it's going to really affect him.
Yep.
Okay,
negatively.
Cool. Let's go to another signing that I'm pretty sure someone do the math for me, but Chris Ivory, is he not making the same amount of money that Lamar Miller is essentially? What's going on there? Why is he getting paid $6 million a year, which is right there with what the other guys were getting paid? Kind of a head scratcher in my opinion for Jaguars. He's a good back, but he's a journeyman to be honest. And what does this say about TJ Yeldon?
Well, this says that they don't have a lot of faith in TJ Yeldon. This also is a matter of fact because the Jaguars had more money than God under the cap this year. What was it? Do they have was it $90 million to spend under the cap? So, they're throwing money around like it's going out of style. You saw how much money they gave Malik Jackson. So I look at Jacksonville as a team that they're just trying to patchwork things together again because just like Houston, they're in this crap ass division and it's winnable. So, and it doesn't take that much to be the team that's going to come out of it. So, and unfortunately, the problem is why guys get paid what they get paid. It's because of what else is out there. And once Doug Martin re-signed in Tampa Bay, that was the biggest chip that was on the market, and he didn't go. So now everybody else was left scrambling.
Well, Chris,
is that why you just made money at your next job, Houdini? There's not many good people out there that do your job.
That's right. I'm the one that at least works harder than everybody else. Come on.
Ivory signed before, Doug Baldwin and before Lamar Miller. The thing is, what they were looking for a very specific type of back. They had money to blow, so they pretty much front-loaded his contract to where it's only like a 2-year deal, and then if they move on, they move on. What they wanted is a back who could score touchdowns and convert short yardage situations. And there was nobody sort of at his age who could fit into this offense that is as good as Chris Ivory at doing those two things. That's where they really struggled last year, was keeping the chains moving, converting short yardage plays, and converting rushing attempts in the end zone. What that tells me is, TJ Yeldon's going to get some more third down work. He's going to get a little bit, he's going to just change of pace work. He's still going to get plenty of touches to where if I thought it was going to be 18 now, maybe it's 14 carries, 14 touches a game. He's still going to get plenty of work because this offense will not be throwing as much as they did last year. That is going to regress. The amount of red zone touchdowns are going to regress, which we talked about on our last BLAB. Basically, this helps them do that. This gives them a guy to hand off to from the 2-yard line to take it into the end zone, which is something they wanted. That was their main goal besides Malik Jackson.
First of all, I'd like to say Valverde. Secondly, that's
what you talking about?
Basically.
Now you can't smell mine for 5 minutes.
Hey, wait, you did that one more time.
What you talking about? You wait till I come out. I smelled your shit for 22 years. Now you can't smell mine for 5 minutes.
Nice. What are you drinking over there, Mo?
I'm drinking with my premier partner, Founders. I'm drinking out of my Founders mug and also drinking the lovely Centennial IPA.
Nice. I'm drinking some Two Brothers Outlaw Pale Ale, drinking out of non-Outlaw Pale Ale mug. This is a Duval chill, but I'm rocking this. I actually kind of like it. I think it's the first time I ever had it, but it's a local brew, and there's a lot of Chicago breweries, but you come from the land of breweries, don't you, Mo? What are you drinking, Houdini?
Oh, I'm slumming it tonight. I'm drinking it's a head snapper Mailbag from Target, and getting it done.
It's a head snapper. Nice. I like it.
Have we ever had a wine as a Valverde? Is that a thing?
I don't know. It's a thing that I had no beer in the house, and I wasn't going to go run out and get anything, so this is the last thing I had.
Isn't there like a Binny's like 50 yards away from your house?
Nah, it's a 10-minute walk.
Nice. I drank some wine on a couple early podcasts. It's sophisticated, Stagg Party. Come on.
Do it. It's called alcohol, my friend.
I just didn't know if wine was considered a Valverde or not. That's all I wanted to know. I think it's a fair question.
Fair enough. Maybe we need to come up with a new name for when we're drinking wine. We'll come up with a new one. But all right, well, let's keep talking a little bit. Should we move on from what's his face, Ivory?
I was just going to kind of piggyback off what Staggs was saying, and not so much with Ivory and Yeldon, but really the fact we're going to see a lot of regression with the Allens squared, Robinson and Hearns, and with Bortles. I mean, Bortles was tied with Aaron Rodgers for 100 red zone attempts. That's not going to happen next year. And like Stagg said, they really needed somebody. Yeldon wasn't getting it done inside the 20. Ivory, that's right up his alley. So I think we're going to see some regression from Bortles and the passing game. And whether it goes all to Ivory or we'll see what that split is, the regression is bound to happen. As I said, Bortles was tied for the most red zone attempts. Only 2 teams ran the ball less than they did last year. No other team at a higher rate of red zone TDs via the pass, 88%. So certainly some regression is going to be had at the quarterback spot in Jacksonville. And Ivory and Yeldon will scoop that up, predominantly Ivory, I think.
Well, I'll make a cross argument to that. And this is that I think Ivory, number one, it's horrible for TJ Yeldon. Because if he's taking away the touchdowns, he's taking away the short yardage or whatever, it's garbage. It makes TJ Yeldon fall probably about another 15 spots down on my tiers. So, but secondly, for Blake Bortles, why were they throwing the ball so much? Because they couldn't run the ball. They were a one-dimensional team last year. The sheer amount of passing attempts. I think that the balance has the potential to help him out because, again, the one thing that you're not going to get from Chris Ivory, which would be more of a catastrophic thing for Bortles, would be a guy like Lamar Miller, a guy that can take it to the house on one carry. Chris Ivory is going to maybe get you a good chunk 25, 35-yard run, but he's not taking any 60, 70-yard runs to the house. So Bortles is still going to get plenty of opportunities, and if you establish the run, we all saw how Fitzmagic did last year when you can establish the run with some good wide receivers, which is kind of like what the A-squareds over there got. So, I don't think it's necessarily as bad for Bortles. I think it actually helps him by giving him more balance.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I was just surprised. Actually, Ivory did finish the 7th running back, had 1,000 yards, and actually got a pretty solid load. Played 15 games and had 247 carries. So I guess he did a little bit better than I had in my mind. Personally, I had him on 0 teams last year. But when I saw that he was getting that kind of dough, I was like, wow, good for you, buddy. Make it happen. Because just 3 years ago, he was on the Saints, and he was like the 3rd or 4th back in the depth chart.
I just think there's got to be a regression. 2 years ago, he had 44 red zone pass attempts. Last year, 100. That number is gots to come down.
Cool. Well, let's talk about who replaces Ivory and goes and rocks out in New York. Thank God it's New York and not Cheese Town up north from us. Mr. Matt Forte, the leading rusher, leading yards from scrimmage for a running back since he came in the league, leaves Chicago and goes out to New York. Jets. The talk on the town was that he was being lured by the Packers and guys like Peppers. And then there was obviously other talk that he might go down and join Gase in Miami because of their relationship there, or Ravens. I don't know. They thought, if that Ozzie was talking, they're going to make a big splash in free agency. And we'll talk about who they signed today a little bit later. But Forte, is he going to have a season like he did 2-3 years ago, or is he going to be a little bit more like he was last year? Big things? Is he the workhorse?
You know what? It's hard to exactly determine what he's going to be right now. First of all, how interesting is it, again, that we continue to have – there's a lot of Chicago Bear, New York Jet connections. You have, Brandon Marshall, who recently went there, and so obviously now he must have really liked his time with Brandon Marshall that he's deciding to reunite with him in New York. And, in years past, if you remember, Thomas Jones, running back for the Bears, who ended up leaving the Bears and then going to the Jets as well. But I think everything right now is predicated on what the hell are the Jets doing with their quarterback position? Because if they don't sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, then and it ends up being Geno Smith, then this is going to be a bad time for Matt Forte. If it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, then I think that you still have a chance because, again, with Decker and Marshall out there, and the fact that what Forte will be able to do that Ivory was not able to do in that offense is catch the football. Yeah. So now all of a sudden where you had all these Bilal Powell, yards, this could become that one big swan song year for a Matt Forte, because if you have a talent like that, you're trying to go for it all. He basically signed it's a 2-year deal, so he's in it to try to win it. And I think it works only if there's a good quarterback, and I think it needs at this point with everyone that's gone, it better be Fitzpatrick.
I mean, that's a big deal. Bringing Fitzpatrick back is going to make or break sort of Matt Forte for me. Even though, Matt Forte is probably going to catch the ball from whoever's at quarterback, Fitzpatrick had a ton of dump offs. Ivory had some catches. I think he had, 33 or something. And then Bilal Powell had a ton, especially down the stretch. So he could have, another 60-catch season. The things that Matt Forte doesn't do well that Chris Ivory does well is convert short yardage and score touchdowns. Rushing touchdowns. I mean, yeah, Forte's had some nice, receiving touchdowns in his career, but he is not a giant touchdown guy like a Chris Ivory was for them last year. So that's one thing, that that they want to be a tough running team and then throw off of that. Forte takes away a little bit from that. So I wonder if they provide a compliment or if they give, Zach Stacy, who didn't really get a lot of work there last year, some more work on just being the hammer. Because that's not Forte's game. Forte is a well-rounded player who does a lot of good things, but he's great in the passing game, but he's not a great pass protector. So the things he does, he's a well-rounded back, but I don't know between Bilal Powell and Chris Ivory if they really got better. I mean, those two guys, while it might, like fantasy, you want one guy to do everything. Those two guys, had a pretty synchronous season last year to where they were pretty good as a running back unit.
Forte, he'd surprise you. He is last year 30 red zone attempts. He kind of surprises you for how often they use him, and for having that name as not often given the ball in the red zone. I think that kind of followed him his first couple of years, but they were starting to give him the ball more in the red zone, especially last year.
He has one of the lowest red zone conversion rates running the ball inside the 5-yard line in like the history of the NFL. He's not a good red zone running back.
You want to know who's got one of the best Valverde conversions during the Pyro podcast? D-Rex. Valverde.
Don't nobody go in the bathroom for about 45 minutes. Somebody open the window.
Somebody open the window.
Things I did see, talking about Fitzmagic a little bit earlier is, and since we're on the Jets, I saw a great Eddie Murphy tweet that one of you guys did for Twitter today.
I killed it on Twitter today. That was all me.
That was great. I was all right on Twitter too. Collectively, it was one of our better days. I think that one was cracking me up. Where Fitzpatrick sitting there, he's like, "What movie is that from? Is that
Beverly Hills Cop, maybe?
Beverly Hills Cop 2?
I think so." He's like,
so good.
It's like, wait, what? He Osweiler got how much?
I mean, what's his name is going to be making a lot of money, and it's going to be from the Jets. They got to keep him. If he goes, our boy, who I'm actually surprised isn't on here in some manifestation right now, PK Ripper. We had him on our last show. He bounced on for about 10 minutes. He's actually going to be helping us out with some content. I've been talking to him this week, and he's going to join forces. Me and Stagg Party are going to have a conference call with him later this week, and he's psyched to help us out with some content. But that guy knows his stuff. Obviously, he's been a juggernaut for us on Twitter and Facebook, just one of our biggest fans. But he's a Jets freak, and he's basically always saying, he's like, if these guys do not sign Fitzmagic, we are totally screwed. Does no one remember what it was like over the previous couple of years with what the situation? So Fitzmagic is probably going to get, 2-3 year, $18 million for nice guaranteed dough, and then ride off into the Harvard sunlight.
They've got a nice team. They got some nice offensive weapons. I mean, a Decker, he was just, never scored 2 touchdowns in a game, but had a ton of 1 touchdown games. Just a solid guy. You got, as one of you guys mentioned, the double Chicago connection with a Brandon and a Forte. Fitz surprised everybody, even the rook, or I guess now entering his second year, Devin Smith. So they've got some really nice offensive weapons. They're going to be, we talked about power in numbers. Jets could be one of those big teams next year.
Hey, there's the guy who's feeding Houdini all his stats.
That's right. This guy gives me all the info.
The 2-man team. I wish I could grab Daisy right now, but she's asleep. She's always like, "What is my idiot owner doing talking into this computer all day?"
Breaking news.
Yeah, he's like, he doesn't.
Breaking news: Rashard Matthews goes and signs with Tennessee instead of New England. Oh, that hurts a little bit. I mean, they've got a bunch of 2s there in Tennessee, so it's like, well, that helps no one.
Well, but you know what though? It helps Dorial Green Beckham. Again, you got to have, because now you still have you got Kendall Wright, Green Beckham, and Rashard Matthews. So now at least you got 3 viable options out there, 3 weapons, and Green Beckham is the guy that has the size and the ability to just take it to another level. So giving him some more support and having that actual third option out there, I think
Mariota could have a potential breakout season next year. I think he's going to take a big, maybe not a breakout, depending on how you define that, but I think certainly a large step forward. Really liked what I saw out of him. And Rashard Matthews, I was talking about this with Christopher Harris as well. Last year, I kind of picked up Baldwin. Now, I didn't hang on to him long enough because he didn't really start performing until week 10, but I picked him up because he was one of a handful of guys that had hands for the long ball. He had an average depth of target last year, 2014, average depth of target beyond 10 yards, and also had a catch rate of 70%. There weren't many guys that did that, and all the guys in that category were big-time names. And Baldwin was the one that wasn't. And so I was really kind of seeing him, just didn't have the patience with him. So I looked at that this year. Who in 2015, who were some guys that caught the long ball consistently? So over 70% catch rate and average depth of target, double digits, beyond 10 yards. Rashard Matthews was one of the few. And I really like him. The other names that kind of stuck out there, Rashard Matthews, Willie Snead, also. Now, this, I think, is more so the quarterback. There was only like 6 names, Curse, Lockett, and Baldwin, which I think is really more indicative of the system and perhaps the quarterback. So I'm kind of eyeballing those guys, Matthews, Snead. I want to see where Curse lands, but I'm kind of watching Matthews. I think he might be able to take a big step. I like the quarterback situation there. I think this is one of those things that John Paulson sort of identified is when they are going from one place and they upgrade at quarterback, which to me, Rashard Matthews, he's getting a better deep ball thrower, I would say, than Tannehill was. I think also.
Yes, Tannehill stuck in the deep ball.
Mariota wasn't much better in a year.
Well, it was his rookie year, and he had a lot of really impressive stuff. He had several multi-touchdown games, a couple of 5-touchdown games, I believe. I really liked what I saw from him, and he's also, I think, going to improve where he was in the depth chart, I guess. I think he's going to be getting some more targets where he is in Tennessee just from lack of competition. So that's one of the things Paulson said for free agents to look for, improvement at quarterback and then a step up in targets or basically on the depth chart.
I don't know if he actually moves up. I think he's sort of in the same position he was. He's sort of a running back 2-ish on his team, maybe 3, because they've got still Delaney Walker there, and no team threw the ball to tight ends more last season. They also came out today. They said, we'll throw in this DeMarco Murray trade. That was one of the lightest returns I have ever seen in my life, that he is going to be a workhorse running back and that this offense is going to run through him. And remember, they give him the ball. Mike Mularkey has a tendency to give the ball to a guy a lot. There's all these things that is there too many mouths to feed in Tennessee with no just giant fantasy producer? Because you got Rashard Matthews, who's like a 2. You got Green Beckham, who could eventually develop into a 1, but I'm not seeing that right away. And then, Kendall Wright, who's had 1-like numbers at some points in his career. Delaney Walker, who was highly, and then you've got, DeMarco Murray. So that's a lot of different mouths to feed. And you've got Marcus Mariota, who likes to run a little bit.
Yeah, but look at that wide receiver. Just real quick, just looking at the wide receiver core, Kendall Wright. I mean, who else? Harry Douglas, Justin Hunter. It's really Kendall Wright, and he's sort of let everyone down. I don't really know if he's got it. Dorial Beckham-Green, like you said, he can certainly step up. But I think Rashard Matthews can step into a number 2 role, and I think he's going to have more targets than he did previously.
All right, the point that I'm going to make is to piggyback on what Staggs is saying here. And the fact is that there's a lot of change going on right now in Tennessee. And Tennessee may become a team that you want to have these players on 2-3 years from now. I don't think that I would want to invest everything that I have in Tennessee at this point in time. It's a team that's in transition. It's a team that's figuring things out. And again, the big key to that is the fact that DeMarco Murray is coming in. What did they lack last year? Why did Mariota was able to have the stats that he was having? Because they couldn't run the ball. When Antonio Andrews becomes your best running back, this is not something that you're writing home to mama about. So now you got DeMarco Murray coming in, who with Philadelphia was basically playing in 80% of the time they were in shotgun, and that does not bode well for him. Tennessee last year, Tennessee was in shotgun 60% of the time. But again, a big portion of that was because they were playing from behind and because they had no running backs. So, you're still going to have, Antonio Andrews out there, but I think he's going to be probably taking on, and you got Jalston Fowler. So now you still have guys that can play the fullback role, because the key for DeMarco Murray is to get him in the eye. And like Stagg said, Mularkey is a guy that will give him 25, some games 28, 29 touches, 29 carries, and let him just run the ball. So, what's going to be interesting, though, for Mariota is I think that I'm not as enthused about the all of the wide receivers, but I'm kind of enthused about Mariota, because I think that it's also going to open up some running lanes for him to do a lot more damage than he did last year. I mean, look, last year he had only like 200-something yards rushing, and he had one 87-yard run in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, and then we just got to sort of think that there's so many mouths to feed. That usually helps the quarterback and sort of hurts all the other guys. That's one thing we always talk about. If there's so many different guys to get the ball to, the best guy to own then is the quarterback or the running back who's going to be scoring those red zone touchdowns. So those are the guys, if I'm choosing a Tennessee wide receiver to own, it's going to be like Delaney Walker. It's not going to be Dorial Green-Beckham anymore. It's not going to be Rashard Matthews. I mean, okay, depending on price tag, let's throw out the little caveat right there. But those aren't the guys I'm going to be striving to get. If they're available for me late and I like it, then sure. But, I'm going to be going for more of the DeMarco Murray, and I'm going to be going for more of the Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, like Kania even said in the live chat, and we've been talking about it in a number of the whole division, Tennessee can't stop anyone, so they have to pass it to keep in these games. They have to put the pedal to the metal. So no matter what, even with DeMarco, and I like DeMarco even when he was on the Eagles, they're gonna have to keep up with teams. So they're gonna be winging the ball around.
But when Tennessee played their best last season with Marcus Mariota, what they did is they slowed the game down. They ran the ball. They played safe defense. So that's when they, in terms of wins, losses, that's when they played the best. When they played a sort of grinded out, smash mouth style of football. So there could be a little bit of that, especially with those offenses in that division between the Jaguars, Indy, and, in some ways Houston. You got to play a little slow in order to gain some sort of an advantage. I think they ran fewer plays than pretty much every team in the league.
What's your Stagg Party? What's your shirt? Is that Shy?
Shy with the hockey stick.
Shy? Oh, is that a Blackhawks, or is that your hockey team?
Nah, that's the Blackhawks sort of moniker. Little rip-off cheap T-shirt.
I like it. It's good to see you were at the Salvation Army the other day.
Oh,
nice. I'm gonna throw out a whiny Houdini.
Look, she better know. Oh, the Lord is my shepherd. He know what I want.
So moving on to
just
another.
Be lipping that thing out.
So we've got some.
What was that?
So we've got some interesting sort of, happenings in Tennessee. We'll see how that goes, but I still don't think they're a team I'm going to want to invest a lot of draft capital in. So sort of maybe moving to a team that's got some guys that you're interested in. What's the next sort of team you like? Who do you want to talk about?
Well, I think,
Kobe Fleener. Kobe.
Yeah, fine. Let's talk about the tight end that left Ben Watson out of nowhere, looking good. He went and signed with the Ravens, and let's talk about Kobe Fleener signing a 5-year deal and replacing him down in New Orleans.
And Dwayne Allen to that with staying in.
Yep. In Indy. Yeah, let me start with the one that was the most confounding to me is the fact that Ben Watson signed with Baltimore. You got Crockett Gilmore, you got Max Williams. It's like the one thing you don't have there is great wide receivers. Yeah. So what the hell are you guys doing there?
Right.
And you just bring another tight end. Now, I mean, maybe Watson at this point in time is just chasing the money, which I can understand. The guy's been in the league for a bunch of years, and he had a great year with New Orleans. But that's the one that, to me, anyone that was had invested in a dynasty thing and invested in Max Williams as a rookie pick last year, you got to be sitting there going, what the hell are you doing, Ozzie? You're killing me.
Yeah, that's the one team that has more tight end talent than the Lions. Their Lions are always drafting tight ends, and now Baltimore. I mean, Gilmore, Watson. Well, they still got Pitta. I mean, not that his old broken hip is going to be doing anything, but you are right, man. Talk about an embarrassment of riches in Baltimore, and man, are they depleted at the wide receiver spot? I mean, if old man Perriman, I say old man just because if you look at the guy, he looks like I've fallen and I can't get up commercials because he looks like he's about 80 years old. But I realize he's basically a rook. But God, they should have invested in some wide receivers.
They still might. The draft's still coming, but on that sort of wide receiver market was very, very sort of thin. So I guess you just got a reliable pass catcher. How, are they going to run 5 10-end sets? I mean, they've got so many because they've also got Nick Boyle, who I think was suspended for a couple games, however. But, this is going to be 3 tight ends, 4 tight ends. What are they going to play? Smash Mouth football with, Mark Trestman calling the plays? What the hell is that?
They're going to run the wedge on every play. Just run the wedge. Just have whoever the running back is, whether it's Buck Allen or Forsett or whoever, just – all right, 5 tight ends. We're running the wedge.
Well, Ozzy's an old tight end, Hall of Famer, so he must obviously he's got inflated and high thoughts on the position. So, but I would say it's safe to say that Gilmore isn't as great as that maybe we thought he was over the course of the last couple months, and the fact that Pitta, whether he wants to come back or not, his days are done with that team.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah. I mean, I think he's a tight end 2 now, though. Where if he would have signed back with New Orleans, he could have been a top 15-ish tight end. Now you're looking at him like maybe tight end 20, maybe tight end 24. He's not a guy I want to invest any draft capital in, especially when I'd much rather take a high upside guy who replaced him in Kobe Fleener with the Saints.
Well, I would say this. The thing about Ben Watson is that you're not going to have to invest draft capital into that guy. But he's a guy that if you're sitting there, and I'll tell you what, depending on what you're doing at tight end, if you're waiting till the very end, he's probably still going to be there. And it's a guy that what you're going to get out of him. The fact is, maybe they just saw everything out of Max Williams and Crockett Gilmore and said, you know what? These guys aren't going to be that great, and we actually think we might have a chance next year, which I think they legitimately do. I know Dog thinks they do with how he's projecting with what Flacco is going to do. But I look. So let's look at it on the flip side now. Kobe Fleener goes from that situation, right? That Watson is going into, is coming out of that, where he was fighting with Dwayne Allen for all this time to try to get out on the field, and he goes to a perfect situation for him in New Orleans, where Colston's going to be gone. You have Willie Snead, who you have as one receiver. You got Brandon Cooks as another, and then you have nobody else. So Fleener automatically goes in and maybe even becomes option number 2 in that offense. And look, what Drew Brees could do with Ben Watson, what makes you think that he's not going to do that and more with Kobe Fleener?
I agree. I'm really excited.
Kawhi was hot for 2 years, and it didn't happen for him in Indy.
I mean, I'm excited for Kobe Fleener. I'm going to move him up in my tiers. I think he's going to be tight end 10. I'd much rather have him than Eric Ebron. We've seen him score touchdowns. We've seen him have yards. We've seen him have sort of successful seasons and successful games in bunches. We've seen him have 100-yard games, which is something you rarely see out of the tight end position. So he's somebody I've, definitely moved up. They paid him a bunch of money. They've got a role carved out that they know how to use a move tight end. They know how to use it better than anybody else in the business, basically because of Jimmy Graham. They, molded that move tight end exactly for Jimmy Graham. We know Kobe Fleener can't block worth the shit. They're not going to ask him to. That's the best part of this. They're putting him in a situation where he
never blocked anybody.
Where he can.
Jimmy Graham never blocked anybody. Yeah.
Great. Kobe Fleener never has either.
Well, Pyromaniac Mo is referring to our tiers. You had Fleener pretty high as is before this happened, and I think you had him the highest out of the 5 of us at 13. What does that mean? That means you're got to be moving him real high after this news that he's going to be the tight end for Drew Brees, right? You got to be super ecstatic about the guy.
Yeah, and that was kind of based on I thought he was going to be going somewhere free agent. And if you look, he's been really now touchdowns. We always talk about how touchdowns are very dynamic. It's a hard stat to replicate. He's been fairly consistent, but targets 2013, only his second year in the league. And as we know, tight ends take 3 years before they really get the system under their belt before they really get going. His second year in the league had 87 targets, 52 receptions. Third year in the league, 2014, 92 targets, 51 receptions. Last year, 84 targets, 54 receptions. He's been really consistent. And certainly with Drew Brees now, I'm liking him even more. I think Drew Brees is going to have a bit of a bounce back season this year. And I really liked what I've seen with Fleener. And I think it was just the fact that what's held him down was the fact that they had Dwayne Allen, who he's a great blocking back. I mean, Allen is a tight end, is a really complete tight end. Fleener is a pass catching tight end. And I think he can be, this could be his best season by far. So I'm certainly going to be moving him up. I haven't looked yet, but I could easily see him, right at 10, maybe something like that.
Well, I'll tell you, if we did rankings and tiers based on ugliness, now that Fugly McSkittles is out of the league, Marshawn Lynch, in my opinion, tier 1, across the board, number 1 overall pick, Coby Fleener.
It's got such a nice
I also, completing the circle here, I also sort of like it for Dwayne Allen getting to be the only guy. The thing is, you can't draft him highly because he has major injury question marks. I think he's missed like 23 of the last 41 games or something. So you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I don't want to. But, as a late, tight end 2 flyer is a guy who's going to be touchdown dependent. So in, best ball leagues, he's a decent investment. He's a guy who could catch 2 touchdowns in a game randomly, but he's probably not going to have more than like 3 or 4 catches, 40 yards, 50 yards. He's going to be one of those type of guys to where, you could just look at the end of the season and he's got the same numbers as Richard Rodgers last year. That's something you could definitely see for Dwayne Allen if he stays healthy.
No question. I think he got overpaid. He's got a year less than Fleener, and I think he's making Jesus.
He
got 4 years,
4 for 28,
29 million.
Yeah. He got
that's
a lot of coin.
That's a lot of dough. And then the thing you got to look at with him that scares you the most is out of their last 48 games, Allen's missed 21 of them. So while I loved this guy, I was gaga about him when he came into the league. He's just can't. I don't know what's going on there. Hopefully he's one of those players that his first 3-4 years kind of just are a mess, and you kind of overcome your injuries and you figure it out. Obviously, I don't think you're saying the Colts are stupid enough to – they must see something and know, hey, this guy's does the work. He's preparing himself, and his body's going to not give him fits moving forward. But 21 of the last 48 games, I mean, that's Arian Foster territory right there.
Yep.
Are we done on Coby Fleener?
Well, no, we're talking about Dwayne Allen. We're kind of all 3 of these guys we're having a menage a trois with the tight ends from this situation.
Well, I'm curious, since I was highest on Fleener before the move, and just real quick, and I understand, our tiers are always in flex. News is always popping in the NFL. But before the move, I had him at 13. I believe you guys had him. Stags had him at 16, I believe. Noonan
19.
Lost where my Fleener was on the board.
20. And Houdini is Houdini had
28.
28.
So where do you guys? And I said I was at 13. I could say
I didn't like him.
Hold on, Houdini. You got to not talk over. It doesn't sound good on Blab when that happens.
Well, I'm just curious as to hear your take. I was highest on him before the move. As I said, I haven't re-ranked him yet, but I could easily see him sneaking into my top 10 now. Where do you guys roughly ballpark him after his move?
Deanie.
Well, I mean, my reason to be so down on him is what he didn't do last year in that situation. So I would say right now he moves into the top 15 for me for sure. It's just a matter of seeing how he's going to gel in that offense. It's I just been burned too many times for me to buy in too heavily on him. There's a lot of depth at the tight end position.
Yeah. I think what I said today is basically, you get after that tier of Gary Barnidge, Julius Thomas, guys who have scored a bunch of touchdowns before in their career, guys who have had a bunch of yards before in their career. And then it's sort of a little bit of a fall off a cliff. And then all these guys from like 10 to 20 are sort of the same. Like if you draft Kobe Fleener and you draft Dwayne Allen, like what's the difference going to be except for the round you're making the pick in? What's the difference between Ebron and Kobe Fleener? What's the difference maybe between Ben Watson and, these guys? They're all going to end up with like 600 yards and 8 touchdowns. And you're going to be like, well, why'd I spend a 8th round pick on it instead of spending, my 14th? So there's going to be a point, if I don't get, the Gary Barnidge tier or the Julius Thomas tier, then I'm just going to wait. I'm going to sit and wait, and I'm going to, take whichever guy. If, Fleener's available in the 13th round and I like him, then take him. But I don't think I'm going to be rushing to the board to get a tight end.
One thing I'll say, Mose, Fleener is just today made it so he's not available in the 13th round anymore. That Breeze connection, and he's just not going to be there. I think he skyrockets up and keeps going up. And there's a lot of, but I agree with what you said wholeheartedly. Everything you said, I agree with. I just think he's not going to be the one you can wait around for. It's an interesting one. That's the tight ends, and I said this on the podcast and also a blab with you. I'm pretty sure in our explosion blab, Mo. I'm going high. I'm doing again. I'm going to have one of those tight ends in the first 6-7 rounds, and I'm just going to roll my dice. And even this year, a Delaney Walker is sexy as hell. Even a Kelsey, like you said, a Barnidge. I don't know, man. I got to get one of those guys because once you move past that, it is vanilla cake, and then it's vanilla cake with a cherry on it. Then it's vanilla cake with a little chocolate on it, and it's just the same deal with another little flourish.
Yeah, Delaney Walker, we all ranked him 5 or 6, basically across the board. One guy I think could be sneaky. Staggs and I are highest. We're talking tight ends here. Ebron. I think the Megatron departure really helps him entering his 3rd year. Great year for tight ends. Staggs and I were both 11 on him. We were the highest on him. I think he could be one of those guys that you could get later that could really show return on investment.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, and I think that especially now, let's talk about another signing that happened today. Marvin Jones, the best free agent wide receiver on the market, goes to Detroit to try to fill the shoes of Calvin Johnson. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the case, but for Marvin, he's finally going to get a lot more targets than he's ever seen. He had a propensity, and he's shown it, to be able to be a guy that can catch the touchdown passes that he did extremely well in Cincinnati.
In one game.
So no, he had 3 in the one game, but he had like 8 in like 5 games. So he was still catching touchdown passes. Either you can or you can't, Staggs. That's just the way it goes. So, with him going there to Detroit, I do like it for Ebron, because now Ebron is going to have a bigger role in what the offense is going to do, because you're not going to sit there and target Marvin Jones like you target Calvin Johnson. So it's going to be a situation where, especially, it depends on what's going to happen with their running back situation. Can Amir Abdullah actually take a step forward and do anything, because he was a disappointment in his first year for what he was going to be. So that's a team also that I don't like getting behind any of these guys in a fantasy perspective for this coming year, whether it be Golden Tate. Ebron may be the only one because of the fact that he's never done it before. So whatever you're going to get from him, it's going to feel good just because it's better than everything he's done before. But I just don't look at that team as being a solid producing team. I look at it as a team that's trying to figure out its identity. All the firings that they had in their front office and everything else. They don't know what the hell they're doing in Detroit.
Well, I actually agree with Kania, our brother down here. Let's talk to a recent signing, probably on this sheet while we're talking about tight ends as well. Probably the guy that skyrockets up more than anyone. I know that I am so low on this guy, but the news today with Ladarius Green signing in Pittsburgh, wow, catapults this guy up enormously. So Ladarius Green for me was my 27th tight end. And I kind of actually thought that Gates was going to be a goner. And so that was even kind of thinking that he was going to be San Diego's number one. But he signs and replaces Heath Miller there in Pittsburgh. What do you guys think? I mean, 28th, he's going from, in my opinion, obviously I'll work on it this week, but he's going from end of tier 7 for me, probably into upperish, middle-ish tier 5. In one moment, and then that pops him up into the 12 to 18 zone.
I was already pretty high on him. I had him 14th because I had heard the Pittsburgh rumor previously, and I just thought it was going to be something that works. I thought there was a few teams that were better fits. Like I liked him more on the Saints, of course. So I'm going to rank Kobe Fleener higher just because they know how to get the tight end involved. Pittsburgh sort of likes to use their tight end as a blocker a lot, and that's one thing they did with, Heath Miller. So I think he's going to be more of a gadget player, unfortunately. So I might actually be moving him down a little bit to like tight end 15. I just don't know if they're going to run him out there. Plus, let's see where he is in the pecking order. He's not ahead of Antonio Brown. He's not ahead of Martavis Bryant. He's not ahead of, Le'Veon Bell. Basically all these guys, I like them all more. I like all these guys, more than I like Ladarius Green. So he's going to be lower on my list. I think he's going to be more of a gadget type of guy who's going to score a couple touchdowns here and there.
And I think a lot of Heath Miller's success, even if you can say it, he had some consistency, but never really just dominated, was the fact that Ben, when he needed a third down, when Ben needed a play and needed some short yardage, it didn't matter what the play call was. He knew that he could bounce it low, throw it low, and Heath Miller was going to come up with it, use his body, and just turn or lean backwards and get a couple extra yards. Ladarius Green just doesn't have that kind of steady toughness, use of his body. So I fear that, and obviously it takes a little bit of time to gel and get that kind of that good rapport with one another. I think that's going to be tough for Ladarius Green. Ladarius Green, in my opinion, shown over the course of the last 3-ish years where we've all been on, or you guys probably more than me, but everyone's giving him all the upside, and he's going to do it this year. He's got all the opportunity to do it. I think he might be a little heartless and not the kind of guy that actually I don't know if he's a Steeler football type of player, to be honest. He might be a lot more of a Southern California Charger type guy.
And, just to be clear, he hasn't officially signed yet. They're certainly expecting it. But like you say, nary a 5-touchdown season. Nary a 500-yard season. Last year was his best at 429. Only one season above 30 targets. Just the proof is in the pudding. He's expected year in, year out to get it done. Haven't seen it, of course. Hasn't had the opportunity. He's had a great on his team the entire time. So we will see. I don't know if he's the tight end I'm going to be gambling on, though.
Here's the thing.
The problem is – go ahead, Stags.
What happened is the reason Heath Miller was sort of so successful in his career is basically every year he's on the field. He's always on the field. Basically, outside of the year he tore his ACL a couple years ago, he's been on the team – and over the last 5 years, he's been on the field for 95% of the Steelers' snaps. Like, he never comes off the field. So when there's ever that, check down, he's there. He's on the field. He gets 2 extra targets a game just for being on the field more than any other player. It's sort of like Jason Witten.
Well, the other thing that I would say is you talked about D-Rex, Heath Miller being the safety blank for Ben Roethlisberger. Since when have you ever thought about Ladarius Green? And the first thought that comes to your mind is, wow, what great hands on this guy. Doesn't happen.
Said no one ever.
Said, I'll tell you what I said.
I don't give a fuck.
What movie is this? I should know this. I don't.
Friday or next Friday?
Friday. God, I did not know shit about certain movies. One thing I will say, and I'm happy to announce this, I'm back on Netflix DVD sending out. So now I'm going to be able to get any movie instead of having to watch friggin' Netflix or pay $8 for the more recent movies. Ever since Blockbuster left, I haven't been able to get old school movies and stuff. So back on the Netflix, now called DVD.com. Good times. First movie I had sent, I've been off it for like 5 years, was Alfred Hitchcock's Rope. Remember we talked about it. When you were in town, we talked about that.
Yeah, baby.
Pyromaniac Mo. If you're into cinema verite and you're into amazing kind of really ahead of its time cinematic kind of storytelling, Rope is where it's at. There's like a 12-minute scene where the camera's sitting like in a corner, and we'll let you get. I know you get restless when we don't talk fantasy, but he just throws a camera in the corner, and it's like a 12-minute scene where people are talking in another room and whispering and stuff, and it's pointed at a wall, a closed closet door. So this guy does a long scene. One was out of its mind. No one did it, but it wasn't even pointed at anything. Now I think someone walked by it briefly to go to the restroom or something, but it's amazing.
Do you know what? I believe that was the inspiration for Reservoir Dogs.
For sure.
The scene where they're in the bathroom and it's just like that weird angle shot, and it's a long shot, and it's like it's in the other room. You're only seeing it through the mirrors and everything. I think that was the inspiration that Quentin Tarantino had when he made that shot.
Yeah, when he cuts off his ear, I think is.
No, it's before that. It's when they're discussing in the other room while he's bleeding out on the steps, and it's at the same time where the guy who had his ear cut off is complaining that I just had my ear cut off, and Tim Roth's like, I'm dying over here.
So I was talking to Christopher Harris today, and again, that podcast will be coming out. The Pyro Light Podcast be coming out this weekend on the Pyro Light Podcast. I'm often doing fantasy football talks with some folks in the industry. But one thing he does from time to time, he just did a stag party. I know you're not going to be in on this one, but did a top 10 novels literature talk that he did, and then like 2 months ago he did top 10 movies of the year or something. So maybe a little side project we could do from time to time.
Rope? I don't need no fucking rope. What are we gonna fucking use this rope for? Now that's a fucking movie.
Well done, sir. Well done.
All right, well let's. Do we have any more tight end action? Are we done with Ladarius? I'm happy to see what happens, but I'm gonna be 4 years in a row. People have been talking about how Ladarius is finally gonna do it. He never does it. I'm not buying in even with the move, but I'll move him up my tiers.
Well, since we were talking about Ladarius, why don't we go back to the guy that's still staying in San Diego, Antonio Gates, and we can couple that with the guy who they signed out of Cleveland, Travis Benjamin. So, they get the speedy inside threat after you lose the dominant, speedy, only deep threat receiver for his entire career, Malcolm Floyd. You're gonna now you bring in Travis Benjamin. I'm not sure how it's going to work there in San Diego. It seems to me like they don't know what they're doing, just like they don't know where they're going to be playing.
Ouch.
Well, they certainly need help across the board. I mean, that offensive line was beat up last year. There was a couple of games, I think there were 4 of the 5 starters were questionable, rotating guys like a turnstile on the offensive line. I think the yards per carry from both backs, not that Woodhead is much of a ball carrier, but I think the yards per carry showed it. Didn't have much of an offensive line. And you saw as the wide receivers were dropping like flies, Rivers started out great at the first half, maybe first third or so of the season, and then just fell off a cliff because they didn't have any wide receivers. So I think Benjamin, like you say, it's kind of this mixed up hodgepodge, but Benjamin, again, one of those wide receivers that I'm going to be interested in with the free agent moves, a guy who is certainly improving at the quarterback spot and a guy that arguably, even though he's not going to be wide receiver one, he might be in an offense that might give him more attention. Even though he was a main focal point there in Cleveland, I think that offense could work for him all around.
I don't know about the Travis Benjamin thing. It's more like, hey, he had 125 targets and he caught, a lot of them last year. Usually he's been under 50% catch rates in his career. So let's see if that, catch rate can continue. But they're going to use him in a role. Like or you can look at Malcolm Floyd for like the last 10 years and just see, basically, he's getting 100 targets. That's his absolute cap. Like, I think every season for like, he's been healthy, he's had between 90 and 100 targets. So that's a little bit, disconcerting as to where, is that going to be his role? Is he going to be only a deep threat? Or the reason he caught so many more passes last season is because they used him in the screen game. They used him on the slant route. He runs one of the best slant routes in the game because of his speed, but he can't be a one-trick pony getting deep because that's really going to affect his value because his catch rate's just not great on deep balls.
I don't think he's going to be a one-trick pony. I think you're going to see a combination of Malcolm Floyd and Eddie Royal is what you're going to see. So the thing that I think is interesting is that you talk about his catch rate being about 50% for his career. Well, a lot of that comes with the fact that he was playing in Cleveland with guys that they were only asking him a lot of times just to take the deep shots early on in his career. So as they asked him to do more last year, I think he was able to step up to the plate. And the other thing that works in his favor is Phillip Rivers. As good and bad that everyone keeps going back and forth on him with, he throws one of the best deep balls in the league. He leads his receivers into the pass almost better than everybody else. And I think that for Benjamin is going to be one of these things where that probably garners him an extra 2 touchdowns just from having him as his quarterback.
Yeah, going from what he had in Cleveland, if he can pull down, catch rate wasn't that great, 59%, and even his yards per target was not incredible, 8.3. But going from what he had in Cleveland, if he can pull down 68 receptions and 966 yards in Cleveland, Phillip Rivers, I think, can get it done with him. I'm liking Benjamin. I think it's a step up.
I'm definitely disagreeing with you guys heavily on this one. His targets are going to go down. So, and he's a 50% pass catcher. And if they only use him on vertical routes, which they intend to do, they are putting him in the Malcolm Floyd role. They have said this. Like, coach speak in this term of the offseason can be a bit, hyperbolic. So
one day
you got to watch out for that a little bit, but his targets are capped. Keenan Allen's going to be the number one there. And then they're still going to throw to Antonio Gates a ton. They're going to throw to Danny Woodhead a ton. Like, he is further down on the pecking order than he was sort of in Cleveland. He is nowhere near the alpha male that he was in Cleveland last year. I mean, I have a problem. He could catch 50 passes for 1,000 yards. He could average 20 yards a catch. Like, I don't see that being outside of their own possibility. But to think he catches upwards of 65 passes, I think is going to be a tough thing for him.
I disagree. I think they're going to use him in more ways than one. And I think he's going to become like that slot type guy. He's going to become that Eddie Royal for him. I think D-Rex has something he wants to do.
Well, you were saying that you thought he was going to be a hybrid of a couple players. I'm just going to tell you, I'm a hybrid of a couple people too. And that's Scott McLaughlin, the GM of the Redskins, and Charles Bukowski. Valverde.
Excuse me, brother. What we call drug the 74th Street Baptist Church, we call us sin. Well, around here, between Normandy and Weston, we call this here a little twin. Wow, nigga.
Charles Bukowski, famous author. A girl picks him up from the airport, brings him to a college. He's going to do this famous talk. And she said, what was it that made you want to be a writer? And he gets all pissed. You don't want to be a writer. Writing chooses you. And then he goes on to vomit out the car window as she's driving him and doesn't even do the gig. Just walks off. Got pissed and walked away.
He was the best. I mean, the books, women, some of his books are, that man is crazy. He's the LA, literally a vagabond writer where that guy just goes, starts drinking, breakfast of champions like no other, goes to the track, smokes 3 packs of cigarettes, probably writes about 3 paragraphs of his book, then goes and opens whiskey, and then fucks a whore. That guy was the greatest.
Ordinary tales of madness.
Yes. Lip it, Dini.
Wine-a-dini.
Older the berry, the sweeter the juice. Maybe it's the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Yeah, well, yeah. She blacker than a motherfucker, too.
Houdini, if you're going to drink wine, I agree with D-Rex. You got to drink it right from the bottle.
Harry Farrell style.
It's not Boone's Farm.
MD 2020?
No, not that either.
Just so
If I had Night Train, I'll do that. Yeah, I get one of those. That's no problem.
Just so you know, Houdini, I kind of want you to be drinking wine on our shows moving forward, and I want you to be wine-a-dini in it every time. Pretty epic.
We went to this, little off topic real quick, and then we circled back to tight ends. But let's move to the other free agent one. Let's revisit Marvin Jones going to Detroit and how you think he's going to fare there. Because that's another one I have mixed emotions about, highly. I'm not a giant fan. Just on a route per route basis, he's not that effective. And it seemed like his whole career with the Bengals, they were like, is he a vertical threat? Is he a short possession receiver? Is he a guy who's going to have a high catch rate? Or is he a guy who's going to average, 16, 15 yards a catch? So, I feel like he has a lot of, things he could do, but nothing he does great. And he just had that 1 4-touchdown game that stands up on his career as being a touchdown scorer, So that's one thing I want to see. I don't know if I'll invest in it.
I don't really like the guy either, but the one thing that can be said is the volume. I mean, he does go from a Dalton to a Stafford, and you lose one of the great wide receivers of the last 9-10 years in Calvin. So there is a hope. There's an upside there. There is a void that he could fill. Not going to say he's going to fill Calvin's shoes. There's a hope. I'm not going to bet on that hope because I think he'll go a lot higher, and his ADP is going to be much higher than the value that it'll return. But there's a hope.
Well, and I don't know if the hope is necessarily for him. Calvin Johnson, we're leaving 142 targets on the table but that's the thing. I think it's going to be absorbed by Ebron and Tate and Amir coming out of the backfield. I think it's going to be absorbed by the team, not necessarily just it's not like you can plug in Jones and he's going to take all that. I really think it's going to lift the other team up as opposed to really accelerating his fantasy value.
And didn't Riddick have the most targets of any running back in the league last year?
Yep.
So you got Riddick as well, who's a target machine. But when you said that, Mo, and I'll shut up for a minute, but did you say lift the other team or other players on their team? Marvin Jones signing is going to lift the other team.
About 2 inches to 3 or 4 or 5, maybe. Here's the thing that I'll say with Marvin Jones. I look at him as like Stagg said, he's not a dynamic guy, but give the guy credit. Okay, he had a 4-touchdown game. He scored a touchdown in 6 other games that year. Okay, he scored a touchdown in 7 out of 16 games that year. It wasn't that flukish. The other problem is that he plays with A.J. Green, and he also played in an offense that was in Hugh Jackson's offense, which was predominantly geared toward running backs. So now he's going to an offense that does not have a dominant running game, is struggling to find that running game and that balance, and he'll get more chances. I'm on board. I'm not buying into paying up for him in the draft or anything like that. I'm not sure where I have him in my tiers right now, but I mean, he's probably got to be like in the 40s amongst receivers. I mean, he still doesn't take that big of a shot up the boards just because of this move. I think it makes him a better bye week flex play than it did before.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, in 2013, when he had his 10-touchdown season, he was in Jay Gruden's heavy volume passing offense. That wasn't the, Hugh Jackson's slow offense. So, there's that. But he's not going to get 142. Calvin's target share was 23%. He had a, pretty close to that target share in Cincinnati. I think he was at 21%. He's a guy who's going to get probably 120 targets next year. Maybe he catches 75 passes and, he could up 1,000 yards. But how close is he going to come to repeating that sort of, 10 touchdown season? Like, Stafford hasn't thrown a lot of touchdowns outside of one season in his whole career, and he still gets boosted up fantasy value for that season that was a complete aberration a couple of years ago.
Good points. One thing I want to say quickly before we talk to anybody else, I think we got about 10 people live on the show right now. 11, there's our guy, Marina. What's up, buddy? One thing I want to mention is that as Staggs walks away, we'll talk about him a little bit. Staggs has been working his butt off along with the whole team. Mo, myself, Houdini, Dogmatica, OC, Valverde, who's on the line here. We're all kicking butt, and we delivered and released our first version of our draft kit last night. So if that is not amazing to have a draft kit out on March 9th, I think we beat our own record by maybe 2 months, but definitely a month and a half. No one else in the industry has their draft kit out. Go check out Pyromaniac.com. I'll type this in. Houdini, type that URL in there for Sreek, our buddy. Okay, Pyromaniac.com. Check it out. It's $20. If you buy the first version right now, we are going to be having another version coming out every month up until the drafts in September. So if you drop the money now, automatically when we update to version 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I mean, literally, I bet you because we got it done so early today, I think we'll have like 6 or 7 versions. Last year, our final version was 6 that came out, I think, on the 3rd of September. So that was 4 days before the season started. You can't get that kind of action out of a fantasy football magazine. And this draft kit, it's on a different level. It's got 21 tabs. It's a dominator. So if you're here and you're sitting there and you're checking out fantasy football and you're just a machine and want to get going, the Pyro 2016 draft kit's on a different level. You'll never, ever be going into your draft the same way again. And like I said, you buy it now. It's not like you're stuck with that until the season. You'll get automatically emailed every version. What up, Stags?
I just wanted to hop in. Last year, we might have technically had 6 versions, but we also released a 5.2 after that Jordy Nelson injury and Kelvin Benjamin. So maybe it was 7.
Fair enough, and we're going to get a lot more if we do one every month like we did last year. That gives us so many out. I mean, it's crazy. So we're going to
I'm going on vacation
before the NFL draft.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing that's great is that when you get this draft kit now, we're doing all the digesting from last year, absorbing all the information that's going on from the draft combine that just happened, then also digesting now all the free agency information that's going on. When you get this draft kit now, you're getting to see all these things. Then you get the next version, which comes out the next month or whatever it comes out, and all of a sudden, then you're going to get, wow, here's how the change happened. And now you're going to feel the flow of the entire offseason. And by the time that you get to your draft in August, you will have been ready to draft about a month and a half, 2 months before that, if not earlier, and just ready to roll. So this is the thing that get on board now. It just makes the entire offseason and getting up to your draft that much easier and leads to success.
And the one thing that I'll say, and we can move on. Just every once in a while, we got to give Pyro promos. We are trying to move ourselves towards making money so we can do this full time. I get a text from Pyromaniac Mo about every 3 days. Like, God damn, I just want to be doing this full time. But the one thing that I'll say about this draft kit with the strength of schedule, and Chub McGrubb mentions it, Marino, one of our guys, mentioned it a second ago, the strength of schedule by itself is just ridiculous. And the one thing I'll say about the draft kit, and then let's move on and talk about free agents, is this is not a preseason, pre-draft only thing. I literally use the Pyro draft kit every week in season. I use our own website, and you guys should too, but literally in season all the time, I'm going back and I'm referring to something. So it's not like the draft's done and you can just throw it on the shelf and let it start collecting its digital dust. I am using the last version of our draft kit throughout the season as a barometer for pickups, to find out things about depth charts, find out all the stat-laden things, and it's pros and cons about other players, and it's pretty remarkable. So we put a lot of time into it, and my hat's off to you, Stagg Party. I gave a tear-jerking response last night for me, and you just kill it. Everyone works so hard on it. We're all some of the parts, but the way you're able to work hard and dedicate your time to put that thing together, we appreciate it. And all our listeners and people need to go check that thing out, because it's on a different level. So who else should we talk about on fantasy football here? What's free agency frenzy? Go for it.
Well, how about the fact that Sam Bradford re-signs with Philadelphia, and then new head coach Peterson brings in his guy who was the backup in Kansas City, Chase Daniel. And when they sign Chase Daniel, they'd say, you know what? You're not coming in as a backup. You are coming in to compete for the starting quarterback position. So it's an open competition in Philadelphia. We have seen the Eagles just completely de-chipify themselves and just remove every bit of cancerous leech that was on their body and ship it all over the place. And now they're bringing it back together, and we're going to see if the Pittsburgh We Are Family can work in Philadelphia.
Well, there's the saying, a chip off the old block. The Eagles right now are in block off the old chip. That was Houdini humor right there. I was harkening back.
I'm harkening back. Harken back. Harken back.
So I don't know if Chase Daniel can win this job. That's gonna be a real question, and got to talk about the aspects of Ryan Matthews moving up on the depth chart a little bit, but he's also sort of on the trade block. I don't know if they pulled him back yet with everything that's happened since the DeMarco Murray trade. They've made every sort of trade they could. They just ridiculed all these guys, and I don't know if Chase Daniel's a real NFL starter or a very good backup quarterback. That's one thing I've got to see to believe. What's your experience like with Chase Daniel? I mean, I haven't seen him since basically Missouri.
Yeah.
I think he annoyed the piss out of me all throughout college and early in his career, but now I kind of like him. I don't know. Peterson obviously likes him as well. I have him. I think I'm the only one that I had him on my tiers at quarterback before the signing, because I knew he was going to sign there, and Bradford's either going to get hurt. Who knows? Is he any worse than a Cousins potentially if he gets in there? Yeah, but maybe not. You just don't know. I think he's not draftable unless he wins the job, obviously. But could he be playing 6 or 7 games and being a great streaming quarterback for people that pick him up or have deeper benches? Right? Yeah, he could.
Doesn't Philadelphia now feel like the team that you just don't want to own anybody on? Like, you just need to stay away from Philadelphia, kind of like the 76ers for like a few years?
Yeah, I don't want anything with the Eagles. Maybe a Jordan Matthews, but outside of that, maybe a Zach Ertz. But I'm not going to touch their quarterbacks, no matter who they are. Basically, I don't know how they're going to run the offense. It's going to be a West Coast scheme, but what does that mean for these guys? I don't know. You can't trust Chase Daniel coming in from day one and expect him to be even like a QB2. He's going to be one of those guys who's on your waiver wire. You got to wait to see it, because he's going to be interesting potentially, but everything. I mean, could he be the next Alex Smith? Sure, but I don't think he's the next Drew Brees. Like, that's who he sat behind before he sat behind Alex Smith. So I don't think he's that sort of dynamic of a passer. But I think he's got a little bit of athleticism. I think he can move the pocket. He could do basically things that are good in an Alex Smith type of game management type of thing. Like, okay, streamer maybe. But I've got to see that offense come together a lot before I can consider investing in Sam Bradford or in Chase Daniel.
Yeah, I'm a late round quarterback, as I know a lot of us are, and I'm not even really having any of the Eagles quarterbacks on my radar, even as a late round quarterback draft, or even as a streamer, if my late round quarterback does not work out, which streaming, again, we've talked about this as plan B. The only ones, Zach Ertz, got my eye on him, and then the Matthews squared. Ryan, it certainly does bode well for him, depending on what they do in the draft. I do like Ryan Matthews. I'm going to move him up a bit. And then Jordan Matthews, he weathered the storm of poor quarterback play last year, nearly had 1,000 yards, had 8 touchdowns, and that was on a really off year. So I think he is a wide receiver that can still produce regardless of who's there. I don't think it's going to necessarily get worse than last year. So besides Zach Ertz, it's really the Matthews squared boys, and that's about all I've got my eye on there.
Yeah, I think Ryan Matthews is a guy that intrigues me a lot now that they let DeMarco Murray go, that they're going to give him the confidence to go ahead and do that. And look, and this is a guy who, after his first 2 seasons in the NFL, everyone thought was going to be a dominant type of a running back. So I find that to be an interesting situation. But let me also throw out to Kania, who just threw a Winadini out there. So you threw a Winadini, you get yourself a sound clip.
I'm gonna have to fuck you up, Smokey. Playing with my money is like playing with my emotions.
You got good emotions going on, buddy.
Winadini is it might be the best thing that came out of this whole podcast tonight. This might be sticking around like herpes after dating the porn star Venus. This one's sticking around.
A clown in the closet.
Yeah, clown in the closet for sure.
How about bringing it back? Another guy who's potentially interesting there. Are you gonna have any faith in Nelson Aguilar, or with those quarterbacks, no chance? Not for me.
No way.
I was still sort of on the Nelson Aguilar train a bit, but you know what? I don't think they're going to get it. He's going to get it done. He was a David T. Thomas favorite. David T. Thomas, NFL scout for years and years, said he was the best route runner he's seen in 10 years, and just didn't translate. Not to say that he can't get it done down the line, but as is often the case with wide receivers going into college, much of their career is going to be sort of made or broken by the quarterback that's there. And I don't think Aguilar's got the quarterback in his corner for him to really take that step.
It almost feels like, to me, the Eagles and Jeffrey Lurie, a man that I've said this before on the Pyro podcast, I used to clean his gutters. You can't make this stuff up.
Is that a euphemism?
No, I'm being dead serious. Any sort of like and experimenting that I had was really young, but it wasn't in college. It was even before then. It was back when I was a thespian. Didn't you want to join the cheerleading crew just to be able to look up their? Wait, where am I going with this? But I did clean his gutters. It's true. I think he might be trying to sell low. They got nothing, literally nothing for DeMarco Murray. They got a 4th round draft pick for him, and they gave DeMarco and a 4th. That's ridiculous. They got literally nothing for him. So I think he's trying to maybe move that team out of Philadelphia and get down to LA with all the rest of them.
What?
Or maybe he wants to go to the Rams. He's doing something. I'm thinking that whole team.
How many of those Valverdes have you had?
They're trying to get out of Philadelphia. You heard it here first.
What?
What? Let's talk. I like to mess. Go ahead before we get into the next guy.
Before we move on real quick, as I said, the Matthews squared, and I was talking with Christopher Harris. I mentioned it again, Pyro Light podcast coming up with C. Harris. He was talking about yards per carry and how it's one of the stats that he just doesn't like. Everybody's throwing out Melvin Gordon and a poor yards per carry, but of course, nobody on the San Diego Chargers had over 4.0 yards per carry. Danny Wood had a 3.5. So he was saying, yards per carry is more indicative of the line and other factors. However, if you look at Ryan Matthews, 5.1 yards per carry. DeMarco Murray behind the same line, 3.6. Darren Sproles, 3.8. So Ryan Matthews, I still have some interest in him depending on where I can get him in a draft.
And their line just got better today with the signing from the Texans guard. But the thing is, with Ryan Matthews, you got major health questions, and that's going to be the thing. Like, everybody's going to be – he missed time last year with health reasons. He's got a history of concussions, got a history of knee injuries. He's got, glass clavicles. So, all those things are going to come together to where maybe you're drafting him as a running back too, late a little bit, who could potentially pay off for you. But that offensive line – he just runs better out of shotgun than, DeMarco Murray. You could look at the stats last year on the shotgun versus I formation, under center splits, and just the different, things there. Plus, you're still going to get passing down work from Sproles. You know that. And they're going to bring somebody else in probably in the draft just because that's how they do it. I mean, I think they're going to be a team that has a lot of different running backs there. Maybe, Spencer Ware comes over from the Chiefs, or they find a guy similar to that. Between Nile Davis and Sharkandic Russ, it seems like they've got 8 backup running backs from the Chiefs. Maybe one go to the Eagles.
And we know that Sproles is always underestimated in fantasy football. What if they're just like, Sproles, this old little fella, we're just going to give him the ball more in the passing and the running game?
No, he's 33, not in the run game.
I'm telling you, dude. They're going to LA. I'm telling you. Okay, let's get out of there. Let's go to another guy that we talked about earlier. Dogmatic had a couple good nicknames for him. A man that I thought was kind of leaning towards splitting, and that's Doug Martin. Doug Martin, the muscle hamster that doesn't want to be called the muscle hamster. We'll all give a couple of our favorite nicknames for him as we talk about him here, but ends up signing a pretty rich deal for running back, $35.8 million over 5 years. 15 guaranteed, sticking around. So he's in on the Cotter. He's in on the Dick Cotter. Welcome back, Dick Cotter situation. Lovie Smith is gone. Offensive talent.
He's the Illinois head coach now.
I know, isn't that crazy? $21 million. That he's still getting paid. Illinois is paying half of his salary from what he had remaining on. That guy he's going to be $115 million salary coach by the time he's done with this thing. That guy's just making money.
Now the best part is that Lovie Smith signed I think it was like a 6 years, $26 million contract, but they front loaded the contract low. So because he got 2 years left on his Tampa Bay deal. So they're only paying him like $2 million per year in his first 2 years because Tampa Bay still has to pick up whatever the difference is on his job to them. So they're sapping Tampa Bay for the first 2 years, and then they're paying him Illinois money and the rest of it. So it's like it's a pretty sweet deal for Lovie.
Well, the New York Mets are still paying Bobby Bonilla for his contract. So this is not the worst. It's not the worst deal for teams in the world. But I've got a theory, and then I'm going to shut up about Lovie Smith, and I'll probably never ever talk about him again. I think this guy, and we've talked about how beautiful, disgusting his wife is to look at. I think this guy just doesn't. He works. He takes a job like the day after he's fired. That guy just doesn't want to have to sleep in the same bed with his wife.
Hey, it happens.
Sorry, honey. I got to go to work. Where are you? I'm at work. Where are you? Studying film. Where are you? I'll see you I'll see you in like a year. All right.
What can you expect from Doug Martin? Are you expecting seasons 1 and season 4? Are you expecting a little bit of season 2 and 3? Or are you expecting in the middle? Because that's sort of where I lie. It's like, I'm in the middle. I'm lukewarm. I'm going to move Doug Martin down for staying. We know that offensive line wasn't that great last year. I don't know if they're going to be as committed to running the ball long term, or if they're going to let Jameis air it out a little bit more with healthier receivers, because they're a team I think is going to add potentially a receiver through the draft. And then, with Vincent Jackson, Mo's boy, hopefully back in the mix a little bit more, and Mike Evans learning how to catch the ball, they might try to air it out. And then you got development from ASJ. You got other guys, Charles Sims, Kenny Bell, who was injured for most of last year. I won't even say that Dante Dye's name again because he was worthless. But, maybe they don't run it as much next year.
Yeah, that's kind of my worry. The amount of offensive players and offensive weapons they have there, an up and comer like Charles Sims, who really looked great last year, and like you said, the sandwich with Dougie Martin there with his rookie season, and then last year, and then the falling off. He battled some injuries, but fell off a cliff in those 2 years in between 2013 2014. Give me a Lamar Miller any day over that. I think there's some steady work there. I know you guys were talking about the Lamar Miller, Doug Martin debate, but since Martin is staying and he's got Charles Sims and he's got all those other guys, I'm going to take a Lamar Miller. I already had Miller ranked higher, but I am all about Miller over a Martin as of today.
I would tell you this. I'll tell you that Lamar Miller might have a higher ceiling potential, but at the same time, the floor is much lower. I think with Doug Martin re-signing, to me, it's the stability. I like the stability. I like what they're doing. You have a young core group. Remember, too, they drafted, what was it? I think it was 3 offensive linemen last year, and I want to say 2 of them were in the first 3 rounds. So they have guys that are developing and going to be even better for him as it goes on. And you have Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who was not healthy through the first half of the season last year as well. You have Jameis Winston, who has proven that, if anything, he is a leader. He comes in there and he really shows leadership qualities. He commands the huddle. He commands the team. He works hard. He's the first guy in. He's the last guy to leave. So you have all these intangibles that are there, and I think that's why he wanted to stay. I think when you look at all the young talent, again, in this division too, right now it's Carolina, right? But after that, are you fearful of New Orleans? Are you fearful of Atlanta? You have a chance. And with the wild card, you definitely have a chance. So I'm telling you, I like what they got going on there right now.
I mean, I just have to disagree with you on the floor thing. Doug Martin's got a craptastic floor to where he could rush for 500 yards in a season. I mean, outside of, Lamar Miller's rookie season, where he played 9 games, his floor is much more well established to where he's going to be in the 700-800 yard range, where Doug Martin's had 2 400-yard rushing seasons. So I don't know, Doug Martin could finish number 2 or number 200. Well, Lamar Miller could finish number 5 or number 100. I think the realms of possibility for Lamar Miller are much more compact than they are for Doug Martin.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, health is the ultimate weapon, right? And being able to stay healthy is the ultimate also roulette wheel. You don't know. So when you look at the fact of that Lamar Miller, who has been shielded and not had all these touches and everything, he's going to get exposed to injury like he never has before. Doug Martin at least has been down that road. So he was able to stay healthy last year through a great season. So with all the young pieces that they have in place and the fact that they are transitioning their team into a much stronger run offense and a much more cohesion into everything that they're doing. Think about what he was in those 2 years where it was 400 yards. They were a shit offense. They didn't have anything going for them. It was only until they got Mike Evans 2 years ago that it was like, wow, we can throw the ball up there. And look, Mike Glennon can throw touchdown passes. So, I mean, he wasn't playing on dynamic offenses is all I'm saying. I think he's got a much better situation today.
The thing is, along with being injured, he also averaged 3.6, 3.7 yards a carry. We don't know what Lamar Miller is, but the fact is he could potentially be one of the backs who's drafted a little bit later who has a potential to finish, RB1, RB2 maybe, because this is a Houston offense that sort of has produced those guys. And their run blocking units, outside of, Alfred Blue, who's a bum, produced some effective yard per carry guys. So I would rather have Lamar Miller than Doug Martin. I just think it's a very interesting debate. This is one of the closest debates we've had in fantasy football recently.
But here's the one question I have for you guys is that I understand what you're saying, but you're saying I would rather have Lamar Miller when it comes to this because where I'm going to get him. But the fact that now that he's in Houston and with what the knowledge everyone's feeling about him, how much of a difference do you think it's going to be in draft picks between Doug Martin and Lamar Miller? And I think when it comes down to it might be 1 to 3 draft picks or 1 to 3 running back taken, which could be a maximum of 4 to 5 draft picks.
That's the thing, though, and I don't think there's going to be much of a difference at all. I mean, if you're going to want him, you can't wait around to come back. Either guy is going to be gone. They're going to be gone within a round of each other. And I'm with Staggs. I think that the floor is better with Miller. And what I want to do is reduce my risk in early rounds, especially with running back. I want to be very risk averse in those early running back early rounds. I'm going to swing for the fences later with my running backs, but that's why I'm going wide receiver early. And then if I'm taking running backs, I want a guy with a high floor. And just looking at Doug Martin, 2 seasons below 500 yards, 2 seasons below 4 yards per carry. Lamar Miller's never had that, never gone below 4 yards per carry. Lamar Miller, besides his rookie year, rookie year, whatever, but besides that rookie year, never gone below 700 yards in a season. So to me, the floor is with Miller, and early round picks, I'm risk averse. I think Miller is less risk.
I understand what you're saying. As a person who owned Lamar Miller last year, let me tell you, for a guy, what did he finish? Was it the number 6 running back? I think you guys
5
said?
and 6.
It was the most undynamic number 6 running back I've ever had in my entire life. He scored most of his points in about 3 games, and the rest of the games were kind of just mediocre and whatever from a fantasy standpoint. So I look at it this way. I'm not going to draft either of these guys because I am probably going to draft at least 2 wide receivers to start and not draft my running backs until later. So there's no way that I'm getting a Lamar Miller or a Doug Martin in rounds 3, 4, or 5. They're going to be gone before that. So to me, if I'm going to choose one that I want the one that's with the whole system that's going together. I want the one where they've drafted all these offensive linemen to protect the quarterback and to open holes for the running back, and they're building and developing a system. So I'm going Tampa. I'll take Doug Martin. If you guys want to take a bet, now listen, I'll be happy if I lose this one in either way because I own Lamar Miller and he's going to be a dominating factor for me in the league. But I ban Lamar Miller.
Houdini, you're getting some bad internet connection. You're rolling up. Is anyone else hearing that, or are we fine? Or should it be good? Go ahead, Stagg Party.
Houdini, we'll have to make a bet on that. Once everything sort of gets sold down. Doug Martin versus Lamar Miller, straight up fantasy points. Like they're going to be drafted right around each other. As you said, like these guys are going to be neck and neck. This is one of the closest debates, so far of the offseason. Something I'm very interested in to see who everybody has sort of higher and how it sort of progresses. But that's all I have to say about it. I mean, I think Doug Martin has some warts that scare me a little bit. And yeah, of course, Lamar Miller has some too. But Lamar Miller's warts are like, what if they don't give him more carries? Or what if he breaks down with more carries? Like, one of those could lead to
that, I think.
So just sort of moving on, there's any other offensive skill players we want to touch on? Any other guys you like?
Well, just to and I'm with you. Put a exclamation point on this. I'm with you, Staggs. Lamar Miller, but both guys did play 16 games. Both guys had 6 top 12 performances in PPR. So it is neck and neck. They're going to go neck and neck, but the way I see it, Lamar Miller, higher floor, you want to go less risk early on. And you know what? Chances are, because most of us are late round QB guys, or I'm sorry, running back later, wide receiver early, chances are we're not even going to get a Lamar Miller or a Doug Martin.
Yeah.
I might. I'm always on the coming out even, sort of early. One running back, one wide receiver. That's just me. I mean, it all depends on how the draft board falls.
I know you're a take the best player available, but just putting your cap on now, and we know plenty of things change. Where where could you see yourself going you're more of a Lamar Miller than a Doug Martin guy, right? So where could you see yourself if you're in a 12-man league and you had a second pick overall? Could you see yourself taking him in that late second round?
I don't even know if he's around then. I think he's going to be around like picks 15 to 18. But yeah, I'm willing to draft Lamar Miller in the second round. I mean, I think he's an interesting prospect. Mo thinks that he's got a safe floor, which I don't give a shit about early in the draft because I'm swinging for the fences. I think he could finish, with how the running back situation is sort of changed in the landscape. Could I see Lamar Miller finishing with more points than Devonta Freeman last season and finishing as like running back number 1? Yeah, that's the reason I take a running back early. The difference between getting a running back early and just getting a ton of fantasy points from Lamar Miller is the reason I would take a chance.
And see, that's interesting. I mean, I'm still on board with Lamar, but with the floor thing, and you're saying you're swinging for the fences, and maybe that's some draft philosophy we get into a bit, but going wide receiver early, I think the thought behind it, at least from my perspective, is that you've got so much unknowns with the running backs. You've got injuries, you've got guys falling down. Look at all the movement that happened with running backs this last year, guys getting injured, Eddie Lacy and guys not living up to performance, whereas wide receivers, you draft a wide receiver early, chances are they are living up to what you expected. Running back, it's more of a crapshoot. So that's why I want to be less risky early on in the draft and locking up. I'm thinking I'm going 2 wide receivers. They're just scoring so many points. I'm going 2 wide receivers right off the bat. Now, I'm still with you, best available, and that may change if I've got the first couple of picks in the draft, but I would rather go risk averse early on, swing for the fences later, and that's why I'm going wide receiver early, because there's less risk there. Running backs is just too much that can happen. Injuries, guys fall off the wagon and not produce. Wide receivers, pretty safe.
Yep. I agree. I think I agree with both you guys, to be honest. I would roll the dice on a Lamar Miller, and if he plays 16 games and gets the carries that we think he is, he could just be the guy. But at the same time, it could be like giving a girl an orgasm and having her squirt on your face. She's peeing on you. Valverde.
Giving a girl a what?
Well, Mo.
I don't give a fuck.
Girl, that was good.
So,
Sorry.
any other interesting free agent signings you guys like?
I was just bullshitting, and you know this, man.
Houdini's so delayed that I don't know what's going on with him over there.
I know.
Houdini's got to fix his internet connection for future BLABs. Definitely a little bit shoddy.
Well, it could be yours too, because I'm getting all the same reverb that you're getting.
No, it's yours. We've all stayed on. It's yours.
3-1. So
Okay.
going back, any other free agents you guys liked? Anything under the radar you thought was interesting? I mean, there's still a ton of mid-tier running backs available. Besides that, though, it's sort of ugly.
I'm going to have to sign up this party pretty quick, but I do kind of have 2 questions for you. One, Sanu going to Atlanta, Marvin Jones going to the Lions. What do you guys think that does with AJ? I mean, he's already so high up. It's not going to – I don't know if it's necessarily going to matter, but maybe does that detract from him? What are your thoughts with AJ Green losing wide receiver 2 and 3?
I have no thoughts on it.
Well, I think that it's tough. He's going to get a lot more attention now, and this is Hugh Jackson's no longer there, so now you're asking them to focus on the running game. I think Cincinnati is kind of in a situation that they did not expect themselves to be in, unless they have some other deep trade aspects that I don't know about, that they're going to bring somebody in, because there's not any dynamic offensive players in this draft class that they're going to be able to grab that are going to just make you go, oh wow, okay, we got the solution for all these people that are gone.
I think there's a couple.
I like Corey Coleman. I think he could help them out. And obviously, I think the person that this helps out the most, the departure, is Eifert, who already showed what he can do last year. Obviously, he's touchdown dependent, and that's going to come down. But he actually had a lot of games where he had like 30 catches, 3 catches for 30 yards and 2 touchdowns, where I think his targets, his catches, and his yards go up if he can stay healthy, because he's a beast.
I mean,
he only had 600 some odd yards receiving last year.
Yep. That's what I think. Eifert's going to have a little bit of step up in targets and yardage and just receptions. I think that's definitely a possibility, but they're going to bring somebody in. I think in the first round, there's a couple guys that will be of interest to them. And I'm going to have to go. Like, my biggest wide receiver right now, ahead of Laquan Treadwell, is Josh Dotson, just because of the things he could do making contested catches that other guys in this class sort of can't do. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the most polished route runner, even though he's a very good route runner. He just makes catches when it matters. He can go up and get it. He's got solid speed. He's vertical threat. He just does everything well. He sort of reminds you of a little bit slower A.J. Green, to where that could bring a huge amount of verticality to this offense. But it's the draft. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I agree. But I think that doesn't that make him a little more similar? Like, isn't that too close to AJ's game? We'll see. I think right now,
having too many vertical threats in the NFL.
I personally, I like to have a giant. If you've got a guy like Eifert and you got a player like AJ, I'd like to get a speedy, shifty, quick in and out, a smaller type of player that can do something different. But doesn't mean I'm right. But the one thing I'll say, and then I think we can close this show down. I think we're running about 2 hours on this one, which is par for the course on our blabs.
Hit Sanu, though.
What's that?
Can we hit Sanu real quick?
Yeah, hit Sanu, and then I think what I'd like to talk at the end is just possible landing spots for the Denver Broncos opening situation as well. I think. But hit Sanu.
I'm not a big Sanu fan either. He's more of a gadget player. You're a little bit scared of what he could do. Is he going to come in and be a wide receiver 2? Or is it I think Sanu is a wide receiver 3 on an actual football team and not your fantasy team, and not a guy he's a 5 for 50 guy you're never going to want to play. And he doesn't really have a lot of touchdown upside. And, maybe if Julio is out for a game, you can consider plugging him in because you've seen what he's been able to do with a little bit of volume. But, I'm not a Sanu supporter, I guess. What do you guys think?
I liked Gary Gnu more than I like Sanu. Anyone know Gary Gnu? Is that Zoom?
Yeah, no good news is good news without Gary Gnu.
Thank you, Houdini. I'm not the only crazy one on the show. I'm not a big fan. I think he's obviously has free agency happening at the right time when there's not too much talent at the position. In all honesty,
$1 million
best in the free agency.
$1 million less than Marvin Jones, which sort of seems outrageous.
So Roddy, where are they saying he might show up? Where
absolutely no fantasy impact.
True, very true. Who are some of the other guys that are still, Bolden? Can my boy Bolden go to the Patriots, or is he sticking? I love Bolden. I still love that guy.
Maybe he goes back and reunites in Baltimore. That'd be my best fit for him. That's just me.
I guess we're having some internet connections right now. Houdini can only hear me. So I think
which gives me no information whatsoever.
I got you. Well, here, Mo keeps bouncing in and out, so I don't know what's happening. Who knows what it is? But let's quickly just shut this party down. If there's anyone you guys want to talk about quickly, hopefully my boy Hopefully Bolden. I want Bolden to sign with Brady. I'm glad that they didn't get any of these middle of the road Rashard Matthews and Sanu's and all the news I was hearing this week, because it was going to be no different than Dobson and LaFell and all the and Amendola and all the mediocrity they've been trying to fill in at that position anyways. But I think one last thing I want to do, and then you guys can throw in your 2 cents on this and any other free agents you want to do, and then let's shut this party down, is, could Fitzpatrick go to Denver? What happens? We talked a little bit about if Kaepernick is in Denver. What happens there? RG3, Denver, or is he going to be the backup in Dallas? Where it could RG3 have a resurgence to his career? Let's kind of just that's where I would want to end it. What can happen with the Denver? The Denver's got the best defense. They've got probably still the top 3 wide receiver crews in the league. And what do you guys think can happen there? Go ahead, Houdini.
All right. So first of all, to your point of what's going to happen with Anquan Bolden, where if he ends up somewhere else. How about, did Anquan Bolden pull the ultimate dupe move on Torrey Smith when he convinced him to sign with the San Francisco 49ers? It's like, hey, man, come on here to the coast, play with me. It'll be great. We got all this great stuff, Colin Kaepernick and the whole deal. And, yeah, of course, it's always about the money.
He wasn't –
It's always about the money.
Torrey Smith ain't complaining, bro.
No doubt, no doubt. So, and what was your other question with which other?
Fitzmagic. Okay, so people are saying they're nowhere close with the Jets. All of a sudden, could Elway go in and be like, "Hey, you're at the twilight of your career. We got one of the best teams. I'd like to see you ride out, and you could win the next 3 Super Bowls." And then all of a sudden, if Fitzmagic is toting the ball in Mile High, that could be ridiculous. What do you got, Stags?
I'm pointing to Houdini.
Okay, Houdini, what do you got?
So if Fitzmagic goes to Denver, it could be perfect. Think about the ultimate statement for John Elway, the aging guy who won 2 Super Bowls late in his career. What if he's able to say, I got 2 old-ass motherfucking quarterbacks, and I rode them into the Super Bowl with a defense that was so dominant, which he could still end up doing, even though they've lost Malik Jackson and Trevathan. They still got a lot of talent on that defense. You still got DeMarcus Ware. You still got Derek Wolfe. You still got Von Miller. You still got all these, T.J. Ward. You still got Chris Harris. You still got Akeem.
All right, we got it. You don't need to line up the whole team.
So that's all I'm saying, is that if Fitzpatrick goes there, they have a chance to win another Super Bowl.
Agreed.
I think Elway, could easily take a Fitzpatrick far more than an RG3. Well, I'm interested to see where RG3 could go. I think there might be something there. I think there could be something there. We just saw too much got injured. I'd be interested, but I don't think Denver's the fit. I don't think that they would take him. They had the Tebow debacle. I don't think they're going to take an RG3. I think they could do a Fitzpatrick, but I really think Elway with the ego going to look for something in the draft and want to cultivate a young franchise quarterback, maybe a Fitzpatrick to sort of bridge the gap for the next 2 years. But I'm looking for them to get someone in the draft and cultivate a quarterback. And I think Elway, that's right up his alley for something he wants to grow and, be the engineer behind.
All of a sudden, it would change any negative press where Elway today said verbatim, we want people to be on the Denver Broncos. We want players to move forward with the wannabe Denver Broncos. So obviously, it's a big move. Peyton retires yesterday or 2 days ago, and then Brock, who was going to be his is the next frontier. He was going to be the Aaron Rodgers to the Brett Favre jettisons. Right now, the team coming off a high is sitting there like, wow, this is not good. For him to swoop in and them just to give the cash to Fitzmagic, all of a sudden, Windini is the name here, but I guarantee you one thing right now, and then all you Stags, you and your Vulcan, we come Nanu, is I guarantee you, as long with Houdini, that John Elway is drinking wine right now as well. Maybe smoking weed too. It's legal.
So a couple things I disagree about is the RG3 fit potentially in Denver.
No, he's LA bound.
No, let me just hear me out. Let's see, Gary Kubiak's a disciple of Mike Shanahan. Last time I checked, Mike Shanahan loves RG3. RG3 had his best season of his career under Mike Shanahan. RG3 is a mobile quarterback, which is required in a bootleg system run by Gary Kubiak. The zone read quarterback provides extra running lanes for running backs. Yeah, this sounds like a pretty goddamn fit. The defense is great, and RG3 has had one of the best completion percentages through the first 3 years of his career of any quarterback in the history of the NFL. RG3 has a great rushing attempt if he's still got the legs to do that. And then there's just the fact that if he makes the running backs better and they've got the defense to support him, along with an improved offensive line that these guys have already spent time adding on over the last couple days of free agency, just adding to this offensive line, RG3 would be a great fit in Denver. Can they convince him to go there over the bright lights of LA? Now, that's a totally different question. Plus, LA gave a first-round tender on Case Keenum because they don't want to lose him. There's just a lot of things, like, they might be set with Case. Like, I don't know what they're doing there. They're losing everybody from their defense. They're losing, Janoris Jenkins, and they cut Chris Long. Cut James Laurinaitis, lost McLeod today. They lost a ton of defensive players off one of the best units in the league. I don't know. This is a interesting sort of debacle, but I love the fit of RG3 should he go to Denver.
I like it. Well, I should have shut up and let you go because I thought you were going down totally the opposite path. But that's all good information, and I'm excited for RG3 to do something. As much as everyone's hating him, and even more news came out today from Chris Cooley or whatever, that just the reason why why the team hated him so much, and the offensive linemen and the wide receivers. I want RG3 to do it. I want him to figure out a way. He's young. He's a talented mofo. So. That would be if RG3 went there and then all of a sudden had that resurgence and next year is a dominator. That would be exciting for me. That would be exciting for obviously Denver fans. But I want him. I'm rooting for him to have something. We'll see what happens. But Fitzmagic would be really exciting too. More so for the talent that's already there and dynasty owners that own Demarius. I mean, Dog said it today on one of our text threads. And today's news, with maybe Kaepernick being the replacement, is the worst news ever for dynasty owners of Demarius Thomas. Yeah,
I mean, basically, I got to agree. There's a lot of different, aspects to look at. But did you see the Brian Arakpo tweet back to Chris Cooley? That was one of the good ones of the day. Basically, Chris Cooley came out and said, these guys hated RG3. So Arakpo's response to that was, fuck Chris Cooley. He needs to shut his motherfucking mouth before I come over there and whoop his ass.
Yeah. Nice. I like it.
So
go ahead.
There's a lot of different aspects of the drama's going to follow RG3 no matter where he goes. And he sort of brings that on himself, sort of like LeBron. Like, wherever LeBron James goes, like, the drama's going to follow him. Like, the shit that's going on with LeBron now, you could just sort of see it, and it's just following him all, over. And RG3 is going to be a bit of the same way. Now, he needs to do something to his own sort of rep and shut his fucking mouth wherever he goes next. He needs to hire a new publicist, obviously. Let's see. I'm interested. That's one of the biggest storylines to follow for the rest of the offseason, in my opinion.
All right. I think we've done great work here. Is there anyone that you want to close out with? Mo? I know Mo and Houdini on the right side. They're like, yep, let's go. And it's an hour later where you are, my man, Pyromaniac Mo. So it's been awesome. I think we've covered a ton of stuff. As usual, please subscribe to us here on the show. PK Ripper, buddy. Sorry you hopped on right when we were closing this party down, but I think we went at about 2 hours and 15 minutes here, and we had some good free agent discussion. You and anybody else, I'm going to be posting this tonight as a Pyro Podcast heavy. So on any platform, you can subscribe to us on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We're on Spreaker. Hopefully this Google thing pops up and Play podcast platform pops up pretty soon. We're going to be moving. Me and Mo are working pretty soon this weekend on getting us over to Blog Talk Radio and all sorts of good stuff. So you'll be able to listen to this Blab as a podcast as you normally listen to any of our podcasts. Daisy's starting to wake up from her little nap. Good girl. And we got Mo's either got daddy duty or wifey duty going on right now. Shut it down, buddy. We love you, dude. Hop on. You're the man.
All right, boys. It's been a pleasure. And until the next time, we will continue the fantasy talk later.
All right, buddy. Again, last thing I'll say, Stagg Party. You're good, Mo. Talk to you later. Stagg Party. Well done on the draft kit. Guys, if you're listening to this, go pick it up. It's friggin' amazing. Houdini, you're the man, dude. Love the backdrop. Love your number 19 White Sox hat. It's a nice one. And it's good to see you growing the beard again. And
I've had a beard forever.
Fine. I haven't been paying attention, I guess. Will you guys say something nice to me for once, please?
I like your blue shirt better than your 49er jersey.
Yeah.
You've got great hair.
Oh, yeah.
I have respect for Montana, though.
The reason why I wore this because I thought Dog was going to be on. Manny might have retired, but Montana's still goater than him. All right, guys. I love you. Good stuff. Pyro Podcast out. Fans, if you're listening right now on this Blab, subscribe to us. Check us out on twitter.com/PYROMAN, the number 1 AC. Facebook.com/Pyromaniac, Pyromaniac.com. Let's do this. We're getting stuff done, getting it going. Pyro out. Much love to all. Bye-bye.
Raise the roof.
Here, wait, one last thing for you.
You got knocked the fuck out, man. Give me my goddamn money. The payback's a motherfucker, ain't it? Nigga.
Peace.
Later.
Later.